Deirdre's eyes swept round the whitewashed ugliness of the bare room. No luxuries here. And Deirdre, who loved comfort as a cat loves cream, shivered a little. On the wall, a text confronted her. What shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? It demanded of all and sundry, and Deirdre, pleasantly conscious that the question had nothing to do with her, turned to accompany her shy and rather silent guide. She noted, but not in the least maliciously, the spreading hips and the unbecoming cheap cotton gown, and with a glow of quiet appreciation, her eyes dropped to the exquisite, costly simplicity of her own French white linen. Beautiful clothes, especially when worn by herself, roused in her the joy of the artist. The two men were waiting for her. "It won't bore you to come round too, Mrs. Crozier." "Not at all. I've never been over a tobacco factory." They stepped out into the still Rhodesian afternoon. "These are seedlings here. We plant them out as required, you see." The manager's voice droned on, interpolated by her husband's sharp, staccato questions. Output, stamp duty, problems of coloured labour. She ceased to listen. This was Rhodesia. This was the land Tim had loved, where he and she were to have gone together after the war was over. If he'd not been killed. As always, the bitterness of revolt surged up in her at that thought. 2 short months. That was all they had. 2 months of happiness. If that, mingled rapture and pain, were happiness, was love ever happiness? Did not 1,000 tortures beset the lover's heart? She had lived intensely in that short space. But had she ever known the peace, the leisure, the quiet contentment of her present life? And for the first time she admitted, somewhat unwillingly, that perhaps all had been for the best. I wouldn't have liked living out here. I mightn't have been able to make Tim happy. I might have disappointed him. George loves me, and I'm very fond of him, and he's very, very good to me. Why, look at that diamond he bought me only the other day. And thinking of it, her eyelids drooped a little in pure pleasure. This is where we thread the leaves. Walters led the way into a long, low shed. On the floor were vast heaps of green leaves, and white-clad black boys squatted round them, picking and rejecting with deft fingers, sorting them into sizes, and stringing them by means of primitive needles on a long line of string. They worked with cheerful leisureliness, jesting amongst themselves and showing their white teeth as they laughed. Now, out here... They passed through the shed into the daylight again, where the lines of leaves hung drying in the sun. Deirdre sniffed delicately at the faint, almost imperceptible fragrance that filled the air. Walters led the way into other sheds where the tobacco, kissed by the sun into faint yellow discoloration, underwent its further treatment. Dark here, with the browns swinging masses above, ready to fall to powder at a rough touch. The fragrance was stronger, almost overpowering, it seemed to Deirdre. And suddenly a sort of terror came upon her, a fear of she knew not what, that drove her from that menacing scented obscurity out into the sunlight. Crozier noted her pallor. "What's wrong, my dear? Don't you feel well? The sun, perhaps. Better not come round the plantations with us, Walters was solicitous. Mrs. Crozier had better go back to the house and rest. He called to a man a little distance away. "Mr. Arden, Mrs. Crozier's feeling a little done up with the heat. Just take her back to the house, will you?" The momentary feeling of dizziness was passing. Deirdre walked by Arden's side. She had yet hardly glanced at him. Deirdre. Her heart gave a leap, and then stood still. Only one person had ever spoken her name like that, with a faint stress on the first syllable that made of it a caress. She turned and stared at the man by her side. He was burnt, almost black by the sun. He walked with a limp, and on the cheek nearer hers was a long scar which altered his expression. But she knew him. Tim! For an eternity, it seemed to her, they gazed at each other, mute and trembling, and then, without knowing how or why,